And we are live. Good evening, and welcome to our weekly speaker series. I'm so excited to have with me tonight Lana, who's going to talk to us about so many amazing things. So, you all know who I am. My name is Monica. I am your friendly neighborhood scientist and a nutrition coach. But today is not about me. Today is all about Lana and about how she makes the difference in this world. So, Lana, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about who are you, what do you do on this planet, and how did you actually get here?
Okay, sure. So I classify myself as a mindset and spiritual growth coach, mainly because it's 11 years ago now. Anxiety came in and kind of changed everything for me. So I, at the time, was at uni. I was studying social anthropology, loved my subject, still love my subject, and wanted to be a lecturer. So I started the first year of a 4-year PhD and I'd applied for it. I was getting ready for it. And then in that summer term between the undergrad and the masters, this thing happened. And the thing turned out to be anxiety. I had no experience of it before. And it just appeared seemingly out of nowhere and changed everything. I went from someone that was quite happy, content, to someone that couldn't leave the house, that spent most days crying, very negative, always worst case scenario. And that kind of went on for a couple of years. So I then had to learn how to be a different way, dealing with this thing that was now part of me. Looking back, it's obvious how it had always been a part of me, and really kind of surprising it hadn't hit quicker and bigger with the negativity that was in my mind, with the constant worrying. I was big on self-hate, self-criticism, all those good things. And so that's why that's why now I do what I do now. So 6 years ago, I decided to set up my own business, and it's all about empowering women to find ways to cope with life. Yeah, rather than having these things happen and then be like, I was like, oh my gosh, now what do I do? How do I deal with this? Kind of prevention rather than cure. So starting to understand ourselves, the way that we think, what we can do to make ourselves feel better right now, rather than get to the point where I got to, which was the depths of despair and then having to crawl out of that. So that's my motivation. And I feel very lucky to do what I do now, because from a time that felt like hell on earth came so much goodness that I learned so much about myself. And I started exploring mindset. I started exploring the more spiritual realm to life. And for me, that's the universe, universal energy, the connection between us all. And then that's just opened up so much. And I get to help other women now avoid that, deal with that, whatever, that time that I went through. So
I love it. I love how you've said some things that are the core of what I stand for as well. So first of all, you said that you're wanting to empower women to take care of themselves. That is really the core of what I stand for, and that's why I wanted to have you here. I love having women here who are on the same mission as me, because I think the more we connect, the more we collaborate, the more people we can impact and help. And the second thing you said, you want to work on prevention rather than treating in all these things. And that again is within the core of what I do. Most of us women, I think we're kind of set up culturally that we tend to only start doing something about the problem when it's already causing us a problem, but we're not doing anything for prevention. So for example, people start going to lose weight when they don't have energy, when their knees are hurting, when they're feeling really sluggish and out of breath just by walking. And then they're like, oh, maybe I should do something about it. And it's the same with the mind, right? I was raised in a very kind of funny environment. So the mindset was, it was like, what's that mindset? Like, I'm a scientist. This is everything analytical. You can't really measure this. This is just something, right? And I never really put any effort in it until I reached quite similar things, and basically was so depressed I couldn't leave the bed. But okay, there were a lot of other things, and I was pregnant, heavily pregnant, and basically I didn't leave the house for weeks. But that personal experience really gives you the opportunity to, once you've broken through, once you've created this path for yourself that worked, and you started studying it, and you started realizing that there's so many women out there who suffer from the same thing.
Yeah.
And if they only implement one thing, maybe two, what you teach, their lives would be so much easier. Don't you agree?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've even got to the point now where some of my clients are asking me to talk to, coach, mentor their teenage daughters, because it's capturing it at that time where it's really, you're in that vulnerable state of being not quite a teenager, not quite an adult, unsure of yourself and the world. And that was a horrific time for me mentally. So So to capture it then and deal with it then prevents so much, like you're saying, prevention rather than cure in the future.
Absolutely. And I think this is why it's really important to work with women and to work with mothers, because we do have the impact onto younger generation. And what we learn now, we can pass on to our children, and it's all about acquiring health in your mindset, health in your body, and maintaining it and making it a part of your life, part of your family. I call this generational healing.
Yeah.
Because there's been habits within generations passing on from like 100 years ago, still passing on to us right now, and someone needs to do something about it and make a stop to it. But obviously we are here because our audience wants to learn how to do this. Our audience is eager to see how you can help them. So why don't you tell a little bit about, like, what is the most common problem women come to you for, and how do you tackle that?
It really is a confidence issue. It will be the self-doubt. There's lots of different fractures it could come from. So it might be that they've had anxiety like I did. I attract a lot of women like that, right? Because like attracts like. So you naturally are closely connected and attracted to people that will understand what you've been through. And it usually always fundamentally boils down to confidence. And the confidence it's like positivity. When I talk about a positive mindset, some people assume, oh, you just got to be happy all the time and pretend nothing bad happens. That's not it. It's dealing with what happens and being able to stand up and still cope, and having the coping strategies and the strength within yourself to deal with whatever happens. Because we don't know, no one saw this COVID come in and lockdown ×3 in the last year. So it's about the coping strategies, isn't it? So it is always about the confidence. It's that confidence within themselves that they can cope, the confidence that everything has an opportunity, a potential. So like you can see, it's from self-confidence to abundance. That's my strapline, because it is about opening up your mind to believing that you can have what you want, rather than limiting yourself or feeling like you're a victim of circumstance and life is just happening to you. It's taking back that ownership, that power, and then moving forward. So it's finding ways to cope with life and powering on through, finding the strength. And it's always there. There's so much. I think because I look back at myself and think, wow, I really did go to some deep, dark places of complete self-doubt, self-hate, and true self-hate, that now it's so different. If I can change all of that, anyone can change all of that.
Beautiful. This was actually just a topic of discussion between the three women between 30 and 50 not long ago. I went hiking to Pentlands because now we're finally allowed to go somewhere else. And I went hiking, and that was exactly the topic of conversation. The slightly older women was telling us, slightly younger women, about how her life incredibly changed when she started loving herself instead of hating, when she started loving herself. And by that, she allowed herself to take care of herself mentally and physically. And I always say, no transformation starts just whatever. It all starts in your head. And I do feel that confidence is the key, because in a lot of times, that you have the problem. For example, I always go back to weight loss because that's what I deal with most of the time, and that was my personal story. But most of the time, you know that you need to lose weight. You know it. But because you've tried everything and it didn't work for you, you lack confidence to try again, because in your eyes, it could be just another thing extra on your to-do list, or just another thing that you're going to fail at, or just another thing that is going to make you feel shameful. And this then brings a lot of obstacles, and is the same with, I feel like it's the same with every other topic in life. When you're trying to address them, is because starting is the most difficult part. So lacking that confidence to begin rolling the ball is the most difficult part. And once you do, then things go amazing. So that's really incredible. So obviously the title is From Self-Confidence to Abundance. If we were to speak and say, I am your client, and I ask you right now, how do I do that? How do I get more confident, or how do I get to the abundant state?
It's about being willing to do the journey. It's an internal job. It's not a quick fix. It's not a quick light switch and you touch it and ta-da, the answer is there. You know, everyone's always kind of wanting that quick answer, especially when it comes to abundance and the illusion of, it's because I talk about manifesting and the law of attraction. There's this belief that it's just a quick, oh, I thought it and then it happened. It's not quite like that. It can be once you practice it and when you've honed that skill in, but it is about being willing to go there, deal with the stuff that you know you're dealing with, the limiting beliefs, the, like you said, the fear of failure, or that prevents you starting at all, or the belief that you start and you're going to fall off the wagon and then what's the point? The patterns that we have in life, like you said about generational healing, we can carry patterns through generations, because especially with things like weight loss, so it's that, oh well, my mum always suffered with her weight, my grandma, my sister, my auntie, la da 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 da, right? So it's that continuation. So it's about being willing to look at yourself and go, okay, I want to change for me, no one else, for me.
Yeah.
And then I'm willing to do the work that comes with that. It's not necessarily going to be the most pleasant of journeys, but it will be a beautiful point you get to. And it's a continual growth. It's also not a, okay, I'll do, like, you'll know, so with weight loss or fitness, it's not go to the gym once and then you're fit forever. Right? It's the continual work. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of memes on that topic. You know, I ate salad once, I'm still not skinny. But totally agree with you. It is about that journey. And I think it's about accepting that nothing in life comes easy. And it is about taking one day at a time, one step in front of, one foot in front of the other, and taking that journey and finding your way through it. Because it's not necessarily the person you're starting as, it's not the person you're going to be when you get halfway or in the end. And it's not like you're going to have to actively work on changing yourself. It happens gradually through your journey. You know, like even 5 years ago, I was a completely different person than I am now. But I didn't sit here and say, I need to change into a different person. Like I took one day at a time, one skill at a time, one problem at a time, and that made me into who I am today. It's like, I love how you said it's not going to be necessarily pleasant and you know, great feeling. It's like climbing Mount Everest, right?
Yes.
All those
any mountains.
Exactly. All those athletes, right? First of all, they prepare for a very long time, but when they go the journey, I don't think they're really enjoying climbing that mountain. You know, it's hot and cold at the same time. They're panting, the body's aching, it's dangerous, they can fall into their death. All those things along the way. But once they come to the top, that view and that achievement and all that, looking back, it's like, oh, that's nothing. That was worth it. And it's the same with self-development, and it's the same with mindset, and it's the same with the journey from self-confidence to abundance. You need to give yourself time. And it's just so heartwarming to see that there's women like yourself who are teaching other women how to do this. I love it. And I think we need more of that. So that's definitely not my level of expertise. And this is why I wanted you to be a guest here. So if a person right now wants to get on a journey and say that they're a bit too shy and they don't want to get to you fully onto your program and all that, do you have any ways for them to maybe have a tester of what you offer, maybe click somewhere, maybe follow, stalk you somewhere? What do
Yeah,
you
I would say my Facebook group, because it's the place that I spend the most time. I
Mhm.
go in live in there fairly regularly, usually about once a week, talking about different things. Last week I shared I went on quite a tangent. This can happen when I start talking sometimes, on my journey with anxiety and the depths that it got to, and then also my journey with manifesting. So you can come and chat with the other ladies. There's lots of conversation that goes on in there, and you'll get to kind of know me, I talk about, and the vibe. I'll make sure it's a nice high vibe, gorgeousness, so that you can enjoy and learn at the same time.
That's perfect. So it's basically something like our bad mom clubs. Basically the same thing. So people can come here into a safe space and just get this expertise of various women who have so much knowledge to share and experience and just help each other. I love this. But obviously, we're gonna drop the links in the end. But before we send people into your group, why don't you share a little bit into depth about your personal journey? I would love to hear what you maybe talked last week about, so that we can give them a little bit of a taster.
Yeah, sure. So if we go back to, I think my real negative mindset started kind of age 11 that I can remember. And
Mhm.
looking back, it was that period of growing from child into kind of preteen.
Mhm.
And I grew up, so you touched on your upbringing. I grew up with a very controlling dad in a very Western, so my dad's Middle Eastern, my mum's English. And so I grew up in a mixed cultural household,
Mhm.
cultural but not religion. It wasn't a religion thing, it was definitely a culture thing, and in a very Western area. So
Mhm.
although my dad was sort of semi-Westernized, there were certain things he expected. So there was like this conflict that created an inner conflict, because then I was just confused. I
Mhm.
wasn't quite sure what was going on. And then it led into a real 15 years maybe of complete questioning myself, questioning my ability, my confidence, never trusting. I could never make a decision. I could never trust the decision that I made. I would always doubt myself so much.
Mhm.
And it all came to a head in that summer term between my undergrad and my master's. So it went on for a long time. I was like 23 by then. So over about 12 years. And the anxiety just made me take stock of what was going on, because I couldn't do the things that I was doing, normal things, hang out with my friends, go out, go shopping, go to work. I just didn't want to do any of that. I'd lost the will for all of that. And there were times that were really dark and depressing and depths of despair and feeling like I just didn't want to be anymore. There was no point.
Mhm.
To go from that, from being okay, but very negative, to then go to this point of like, well, what's the point in life at all? To then being, I went through counselling, I went through medication, I even trained as a counsellor, thinking that would help a little bit further down the line, and then started to explore more spiritual ways of being, so more about connecting to energy and energy healing, because I felt like there was something missing. Medication, the counselling, just felt like a zombie. And so that kind of reignited me and lit me up again. And it's always a continual journey. Like I said about the journey's not necessarily pleasant. It isn't. There's going to be difficult times, because without difficult times, you're not going to really grow. If you're stuck in the comfort zone of just sort of going around in this safe box and
Mhm.
never pushing beyond that, that pushes the growth. The growth is painful, but the growth is worth it. Because then, like you said, if you're walking up a mountain and you look back and you think, I've done that, I've done the 3 peaks personally in England, that's enough mountain climbing for me. My other half is a mountain climber. He did base camp at Everest, so he loves all this. And every time I'm like, right, that's it, no more mountains. Because I've done it now. But it is that you learn so much about yourself on that journey, that
Yes.
then other stuff. So when I was going through these periods of growth and exploring more spiritual understanding of life, I would look back on things that I'd felt when I was anxious, and it gave a different perspective. And that different perspective just started to change things gradually, because it made me realize, okay, there are different ways of being, and I can learn and I can grow, and I don't have to stay stuck in this anxiety. I felt like my anxiety ruled me, and I wasn't a person anymore. I was just this thing that carried anxiety with me around on my shoulders everywhere. And I look back at that girl and I think, wow, that feels like a lifetime ago. But there's so much to learn from there. You know, I have ladies come to me and they've had similar experiences or difficulties of some kind.
Mhm.
And they'll be, why? Why has it happened? Why did it have to happen to me? Those kind of things. But
Yeah.
it's an opportunity to grow. It's an opportunity to learn. It's an opportunity to share the outcome. If you're exploring yourself enough to want to understand why it's happening, then you've got all this wealth of knowledge to share with other people. So
Mhm.
that when they're going through these things, you can say, well, here's a shortcut. That's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be the one that gave all the shortcuts to this stuff that I went through that I couldn't find any shortcuts for.
I think this is really nicely told. And, you know, as you were speaking, like my mind just went back into my past. And honestly, like I think I went through a lot of stages of my life, and I will probably still go through a lot of stages in my life, but definitely the journey was not fun and it was very educational. But yeah, it's about finding that shortcut, about taking someone else's advice. But I think nowadays also we're so primed not to believe other people or not to believe something just because it's different to what we're used to. So you're talking about energy, you're talking about manifestation, right? Obviously, as a analytical person and a scientist and all these things, to me those things were all about like whatever. If you can't measure it, it's not real. But the more I lived through life, the more things were happening to me over and over and over again. And I know my mother, which is quite funny, kept saying to me, the lessons will keep coming until you learn them. They will keep coming until you learn them. And I didn't, I said, yeah, whatever. It's just some of the things that my mom says again. But they did. They kept coming in different forms. You know, it's like, I think the most typical one is relationship.
Yeah, I was
Right?
going to say that is always the classic one.
It's the most typical one. Oh God, one terrible relationship after another, one heartbreak after another, from a guy dumping me in the middle of Munich where we lived together and changing the lock of our flat and throwing on my stuff out. So I was basically homeless overnight, to a guy dumping me 6 months pregnant in Scotland, things like that. And at some point, I had to look within. I was like, right, what lesson do I have to learn? What lesson did I need to get over? I have to actually deal with. And well, hopefully I've dealt with. I've been on this journey. I've actually stopped and started listening. And one thing that I noticed, talking about manifestation, one thing that I have noticed that is common to every successful person that I follow. Like I follow a lot of millionaires, self-made people, entrepreneurs, all these people, reading books, incredible books. Those people are incredible. They're successful. They've done something. And the more I study them, the more I realize there's one thing in common. They do a sort of manifestation, right? They either do it in the form of a vision board, or they do journaling, or they write affirmations. And it's all so foreign to an everyday person. It all sounds so weird. Or when the film The Secret came out, and some people were like, yeah, but some of us were like, "Ugh." I was like, what is that? Come on. You send the message into the universe and then it's, oh, come on. That's stupid. That was literally me, right? And then my lessons happened. And now what I do is, now I journal, I manifest, I've got this here. You create your future. You don't just predict it. So I do the same thing, and it's not even been 6 months. The things started changing incredibly just by putting my goals, my ideas, my visions on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
You know, and I can't measure that. Some people call it energy. Some people call it manifestation, affirmation, whatever you want to call it. You can't really measure it by works, right? So it's all about being open-minded on a
Yeah.
journey to becoming better version of you. And that can be through mindset. It can be through healthier lifestyle choices. It can be best through combination of both.
Yeah.
Because our bodies and our minds are so connected,
Yeah,
so
of
connected.
course.
And every time that I notice a person who's working on one angle, they eventually come onto the other angle and then they combine them. And hopefully I'm there, but I want to do exactly what you're doing, providing a shortcut for
Mm.
people so that they don't need to develop a chronic illness before they seek out help. They don't need to have their knees replaced before they
Mm.
seek out help, and things like that. And it's the same what you do. So anxiety can be extremely, extremely difficult to get out of,
Yeah.
or even deal with,
Yeah.
or it paralyzes you. It
Mm.
just I had anxiety as well, so I understand. Like, it's feeling in constant, like your body's feeling like panicky and all that, knot in your stomach. You feel sick. You've got
Mm.
headaches. You don't want to do things. I mean, who wants to feel like that? And it's messages. It's telling you something, right?
Yeah.
This
For
is
sure.
so incredible. And I think you and I could have a conversation about this like forever. But in the interest of time, before we leave the golden last 5 minutes, what would be your kind of final message to leave the audience with? What do you want to put out there? How do you want to invite people to come in touch with you? Because you are here so that my audience can come in touch with you. I want you guys and girls to connect with Lanna, because everyone can help you in a way. If nothing else, join her Facebook group. But Lanna, what would your final words be?
I think it's always about accountability. This was one of the hardest pills I had to swallow when I first started exploring understanding life from a different perspective. And it was about how I created the different experiences I had, including the bad ones, not just the good ones. I couldn't just take accountability for the good ones. It was the bad ones too. And like you said about your mum saying lessons will keep, that's one of the things I say. It will keep coming round and round and round unless you're willing to actually deal with it. So rather than live a life on repeat, be open to the signs and the lessons. And when it comes to things like mindset things, so anxiety, insecurities, negativity, I always say make a date with it. So give it the respect that it's trying to get your attention. It's like a toddler, it is demanding your attention. The more you go, leave me alone, the louder it's going to get. So if you can actually give it the space, the time, the respect to listen, and have an end time to it. So give it a date, give it 10 minutes, give it 15, half an hour. When I was working through my anxiety, I would probably have about 10 minutes every hour, knowing that I had that 10 minutes to really sink into my anxiety. But the other 50 minutes of that hour, I couldn't. I had to wait for the next 10 minutes because it gets you back into actually living in reality in your present moment. Because anxiety is always worrying about what's going to happen in the future. Depression tends to be focusing on what's happened in the past. If we can be present, usually the stuff that we get overwhelmed with becomes a bit irrelevant.
Oh, I love that. So, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree. I have nothing else to add. Thank you so much for coming over. I love having our conversation. Honestly, I'm gonna kidnap you after this conversation and invite you for my other platform so you can come and talk to me on Instagram as well. And if there's anyone in the audience watching this on replay, please do hashtag replay, share this video wide and far, tag me and Lanna in it. We would really appreciate it. And if there's anyone who has a personal experience and does want to share their life story with us, please do come, because by sharing our stories, we get to help people. it doesn't have to be professionally, but you can inspire someone to start making changes in their own life. And that is what's the most important. I always say, make sure that people are getting healthier and happier first, and everything else will follow. So thank you everyone for coming over. Alana's gonna send us all her links. She's a part of the group now, so you can also message her here, tag her under this video, but she will pop the links into the comments here. I'll make sure to copy them into the edit, so there will be in description as well. And get in touch with her, because she is incredible and she might help you in ways that you don't even know yet. So you have all a fantastic evening. Thank you, Lana, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I'll see you all next Monday for our next guest speaker series. Bye-bye.
Bye.